good side, right? Whichever that is. So, okay, good morning. The date is November the 5th, is that right? It is November the 5th, and for the record, we're here in Chiang Mai at the Win Place Hotel for the Lanna Light Gathering Sunday presentation about the Neuro Light. My name is Garnet, and what I want to do is kind of look quickly at the 2 hours. More or less, give or take, let's do it in sort of half-hour chunks so that it's not a burn. You know, sitcoms come in at 22 minutes plus commercials for certain reasons. And let's see how that works. So basically, instead of having one big break, Pratika's pointing us...
Sorry, I mentioned there's a break at morning tea for 15 minutes, so maybe 10 o'clock, something like that, if that works.
Okay, 10 o'clock. We'll see what that does. I'm not a fan of 15-minute breaks where it turns into 20, 25 minutes, and you know, I'm really selfish with our time together. Feel free to do whatever you like, but as I mentioned earlier, I started at 8:30. I've always liked Lufthansa time, mainly not because I have to have that, but because I respect you. You've come, some of you, a very long distance. You're here, you get up, you have breakfast, you're sitting down. Why should you wait 20 minutes for somebody else? I respect your effort. To me, let's call this the classroom, or call it whatever you want. To me, learning is sacred. It's sacred. This is the only place in the world where you cannot know, I was going to say your shit, but I shouldn't swear because of the video. This is the safest place to not know your stuff, because you're here to learn. You know, out there, you're supposed to know your stuff. So to me, call it the classroom, call it what you want, this is a sacred place. This is a place where we get to let down defense. This is the place where we get to ask questions and explore and be vulnerable and then walk out that door with some advantage. Okay, so to me this is a sacred place. I treat it with respect. Let's have fun. How about I'd like 2 or 3 or 4 of you, and there's a mic here. I'm using the mic so that it's recorded on the video camera. What do you hope to happen in 2 hours here? What do you want? That you walk away and you feel like, that's been a good thing. Right? Here's the mic. I mean, just for the sake of the folks that aren't here and see it on video. Anybody? Okay. I don't know if it's on or not. No. Okay. So this is Mark. Got it.
It's definitely on there. I'd like to understand the best ways to find a therapeutic use for the Neuro Light. We've got one, but we haven't used it yet, and we're dying to use it, but we're also dying to know how to bring that to people and how to do that properly and what it's most effective for so they get a benefit.
Okay, Mark is asking, in case you didn't hear, the best or most direct way or a reasonable way to use the Neuro Light in a therapeutic venue, how to get good effects from it, is what I get as the question. We'll look at that. Remind me, we'll be talking about brain exercise, help right now, and brain shaping. Those are the 3 ways we'll talk about that. Next question, somebody, come on, stir the pot. I don't want to play choo-choo train and drag you around all day. Come on. Question? Yes?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. I have a technical question.
Sure.
I have an Ashna light.
Yes.
And I try to understand how it works with the flickering effect that it stimulates your pineal gland. So I'm wondering, because I didn't find it yet online, how is this mechanism different in the Neuro Light?
A famously interesting question.
And,
I'll do my best in the context of the Neuro Light. This is not a session for the Ajna Light, but obviously because some of you have both, the hardware is the same, it's a reasonable question, and I'll do my best to give an honest answer. So remind me if I don't get to it, because it's a little bit of a sidecar, but it's also a very reasonable question.
Yes. And I have a question B.
Yes.
Can it be used for groups, the Neuro Light?
Short answer, why not? Okay, yes sir. Give it the mic. Go ahead, what's your name?
Olaf.
Olaf, pleasure.
When you use the Neuro Light and you I started too much, how can you determine when it's time to break up?
Okay, that's a good question. In case you didn't catch it, that Olaf began using it, he had the experience of too much. And I think I know what you mean. So how do you know how to ramp and grade the experience? We'll talk about that. It's one of the core concepts. If you go away today and you don't have this firmly appreciated, then I feel like I've not done my job. It's the concept of the relationship of capacity and demand. Capacity, demand. Okay, so don't let me forget to come around to capacity and demand. Thank you. Anybody else? Come on. Don't be boring. Come on. John over here, way over here. Not John.
It's John.
It is John. John.
With the over 100 settings, where should someone start?
Yes. At the beginning. And I'll
Where's the
I'll
beginning?
elaborate on that. Don't let me forget. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm trying my best to get a feel for what you're interested in, and also to let each one of you know what's happening in the group here, because you're spending a few days together. All right, so this is seeding us for the next, I'm taking like maybe in 3 or 4 more minutes to do this, but this is seeding for me your interests, and also getting your brain to kick in, because the caffeine takes about 15 minutes. Okay? Question? Somebody? Yes, sir.
I'm Tav.
Hi. Not on. Just leave the mic on for now.
Yeah, okay. So I'm Tav. I guess my question is, how do you know that it's working? And what benefits can you see to
Sure.
really see those benefits?
Okay. The reminder is like eating a meal. Okay, so if I don't get around to that soon enough, please remind me about eating a meal and your question again. Okay, so the question was, how do we know it's working? I'm paraphrasing. Olaf again. Tag team. This is good, thank you.
For sales,
Sales.
the most, foremost, and the best and the most unique selling point, how do we really sell it? What is
Sell it, you mean to convince,
the catchphrase?
but this is for somebody to take advantage of having the sessions, or you want them to purchase it as an affiliate? I'm not sure what you mean by
No,
sell.
if I want to introduce the Neuro Light for
Yes,
someone,
yes.
the unique selling point that's over everything else.
Well, I can tell you right now, let's use that as a starting point, that whatever the state of your brain is today, it can be better tomorrow. And there are 3 ways of approaching it: through movement, through mental, and through the sensory. And although you may not realize it, the sensory is probably the most common, the most important. It's so close to us, we probably don't recognize it. For example, right now, you're experiencing me through your senses, right? Your senses. So using the senses is the specialty of the Neuro Light, that we can access positive neuroplastic change in the brain by using light and sound signals. To me, it's profoundly obvious, but oddly missing in our appreciation of how to improve the brain. And I'll come around sideways to that in the beginning, but to me the important thing is that you can't teach an old dog new tricks is a flat-out lie. Right? That whatever the state of your brain today, it can be better tomorrow. All you need to do is recognize the methodology or the approach, and it is guaranteed that your brain will start to be better, and better in a number of different ways, and that's the detail. You know, right now, for example, okay, here we go. One of the huge mistakes is to think that the brain is separate from the body. That's a big mistake. Okay? Your brain is your body is your brain. Right now, everything that I'm doing, what looks like my body, Barnaby, jet lag, everything that I'm doing with my, nothing like calling out a friend, right? Everything I'm doing right now is my brain. You're seeing my brain. Don't separate the body from the brain. That's stupid. Pardon me. It's not wise. It's not wise to do that. So, many of the questions about how do I know and where do I start and how do I know I'm getting results and all of this, don't make it so abstract that you think you have to have some kind of EEG or special psycho ability or psycho abilities, right? That right now you're seeing my brain. this is what my brain looks like somatized. Okay? And I'm not going to go into the distinctions of brain and mind and all of this, to me, foolish separation and reductionism. Body, mind, brain, you know, we seek the connection. I don't think there's a separation. Okay, so the Neuro Light is my best current effort at bringing into reliable, reasonably simple access the discoveries that are changing neuroscience right now, fundamentally or predominantly neuroplasticity. Right? Things changed hugely in neuroscience when it was appreciated that the brain produced electrical signals. Whoever thought? Right? Before, you're basically looking at lumps and bumps, you know, phrenology, and then localization, brain surgeons getting to poke around, and then we had the technology to say, whoa, there's all kinds of electricity coming off of here. Who would have thought? And of course, this laid the basis for EEGs and Hans Berger way back when. In the 1920s, the first mapping was 10 hertz over the visual cortex. And he said, wow, you know, and later categorized that as alpha, not because of anything other than the fact that it was the first one. So he said, well, I'll call that alpha. And it expanded. So there was a large period of time, about 40 to 50 years, where brain signaling took the forefront, and one of the spin-offs was this famous frequency following response. You know, what popularly became known as brain entrainment. So you start to develop techniques that work with entraining the brain. You have to understand, and I believe, hopefully you do, is that there's no one signal in the brain. It's a cacophony. It's a symphony almost gone mad that keeps coming back into order so that we can do things like me sitting up here and talking and you sitting and listening without falling over or being dizzy or things like that. So the brain entrainment aspect as a process, as a method, was a reflection of the science of the day. Now, we knew, because I was involved, frankly, from the early 70s, we knew by the mid-1980s, 85, 88 for sure, that there was a strong limitation on brain entrainment factors, results, the benefits. So, you know, I'm asked, does brain entrainment work? Yes. Does it work as well as we hoped? No. So brain entrainment is an aspect. It's a very narrow aspect of brain behavior. It's really a good way to basically entrance the brain, to put it in a narrow corridor and kind of keep it in that corridor. It's like, you know, restricting the orchestra to one instrument. So that's good for what you want. If that's what you want, it's good. Now, science progresses on, and all of a sudden, kapow, wire it to wire it. Actually, I'm born in Canada, a few of you maybe as well. I'm proud to say I was actually born in '49, the same year as this fellow named Hebb, H-E-B-B, this Canadian physiologist, declared that the brain was capable of ongoing new learning in adulthood. Not just in childhood, which is evident, but in adulthood. And nobody believed him, number one. Nobody knew what to call it, so they called it Hebbian learning. Hebbian learning. Well, that's 49, and it takes 50 years into the late mid-90s to realize, whoa, this Hebb guy, we're going to call it neuroplasticity. We're going to call it neuroplasticity. There's evidence now that there is a potential in the brain, your brain right now, my brain right now, to be better, to change, to keep learning, to keep adapting. So, how do methods reflect that possibility? Brain entrainment in the Neuro Light represents around 15, maximum 20% of any composition. You know, it's like music, you know. Is music only the beat? No. There's all kinds of recursive melodies and harmonics, and you know, music is not boring. Right? Music is music. So we have an opportunity with the evolving insights of the brain, brain, mind, body being almost all bees, but not quite, right? We have an opportunity right now to take advantage of the most recent understandings that are ever evolving about the brain. And that's where neuroplasticity comes in. That I have a term because I'm trying to make a distinction. Brain entrainment is a certain type of brain signaling process. The research is there. If you can bother or are interested or you don't mind the language, it's full and jam-packed. Out of the best places, Stanford and Harvard and everything, you know, or other international universities, I would say international, European universities, that show the fundamental characteristics of brain entrainment and its capacity, its utilization, its limitation. So with the Neuro Light, I call it brain engagement. It's brain engagement. How to engage the brain for dynamic neuroplastic change. That's the game changer. That's the game changer. The dynamics, the beautiful vulnerability or openness or willingness of the brain within certain limiting categories to keep learning. Right now, there's no reason in the world that your brain can't be getting better and better and better. The question is, how can we do it? Hi. Ziggy? We're on what time here, you know?
Yeah, I'm on lost GPS time.
Okay, all right. Okay. A friend who's... Anyway. So how can we best communicate with the brain, our brain, me? The brain has a language. It has a language. Right now we're speaking words, right? This is symbolic. But what's a close dialect of the brain itself? Everything you're experiencing right now is being translated into electrical signals in your brain. Auditory, visual, temperature, touch, whatever aftertaste from your coffee. That's strong coffee. It's all being interpreted into electrical signals in the brain. Now, what's the best way, simplest way to start to improve your brain?
Use it.
Say what?
Use it.
Use it. What's the simplest way of using your brain?
Do something.
To move. The gentleman says exercise. I won't even put it that formal as exercise. Move. Dance. I don't know if you think of dance as exercise, but right now, I'm moving my brain. Yes, I mean, if I was up on a functional MRI all lit up, you'd see my brain signaling a dance that is inseparable from my body. And if you know anybody that's had a stroke, you realize the profound reality of that. So, engage. That's why I call it brain engagement. The idea is that in the Neuro Light, all of the various experiences, the sessions, are what I term compositions. And they are a composition of light and sound. And the idea is not to simply entrain the brain. That's super easy. It's not interesting, frankly, to me, although it's a kind of a nice thing if you want to go to a certain state and stay suspended in that state, which may be relieving or relaxing or somehow increasing focus. But understand that you're in one lane of a 6-lane highway when you do that. So sometimes one lane is going to take you all the way there. But sometimes you've got to go in and out depending on traffic. That's the complex adaptive quality. That's what makes the brain amazing, is its ability to self-organize. So the Neuro Light is designed to create a higher level of self-organization in your brain, so that you can take that higher level of efficiency and do the good stuff that you want to do. If you can't adapt, right? If right now you're seated, you're in these chairs, and if you can't move around for the sake of your comfort, lean back, lean forward, then you're stuck in a particular posture which will become potentially stressful. So the ability to shift your body around, flexibility, by the way, in the brain gym we have coordination, flexibility, endurance, and strength. Did you happen to notice that? How many of you have the Neuro Light? Just give me some sort of sense of, so around 40% of you. Okay. So if you don't have it, pardon me because I'll be making some references to the user interface. For those of you that have it, it'll be meaningful. And for those of you that don't or don't yet, it will be meaningful. I designed the brain gym in relation to the brain skills, in relation to the brain food. You know, I believe, I hope, that I introduced the nasal light. Originally, I wanted to go transcranial. Too complicated, too expensive. I've used the nasal light, which is originally a Russian invention, popularized throughout Asia. It's been used clinically throughout China and other Asian countries now for 20 plus years. I've been using it for more than 15 years myself. It's amazing. If any one pill did or does what the nasal light does, it would be the most famous therapeutic pill in the world. And I'm not going to spend too much time on that now. You can have a Maserati, but if you've got no gas in the tank, it's an ornament. Right? And the self-organization, I don't know if I'm going, like, if this direction works for you, that's good. If this is not working for you, raise your hand and say, it's not working, you know, because I'm trying to follow a feeling right now based on a few of the questions. If it's not happening, put up your hand and say it's not happening. I'm not offended. I'm helped. So, okay, big fat thing to about this size. I designed the Neuro Light based on complex adaptive systems. The brain is a complex adaptive system. You know, we always try to find analogies for really complicated stuff. Oh, you know, the brain is like a telephone. No, the brain is like a computer. No, the brain is like an internet. The current concept is a complex adaptive system. That means it has so many parts and pieces, we don't know how many parts and pieces, number one. And number two, remarkably, they all are interdependent. The exponential possibility of the brain is beyond our imagination. Well, most people's imagination anyway. So you got to have three things. This is why the Neuro Light has three elements. A complex adaptive system is self-organized. It's ready, willing, and able to adapt. That's why the rainforest, if we don't muck it up, keeps on thriving. That's why ecosystems thrive, economies thrive, and then we intervene and do dumb stuff. So, number one, self-organized. Your brain knows how to figure out stuff. You know, you think that our brain is busy doing this thing. No. I'm making up a number, it's really big. 80% of the brain's activity is self-organization. It doesn't care about the sensory experience. There's so much housekeeping going on, there's so much regulation going on, that it's able to take care of all this sensory thing at around about 20% of its capacity. That may not be literally true, but it's that kind of ratio. So self-organization, wow. But here are the two things. You can self-organize if, number one, you have enough energy. Complex adaptive systems are energy dependent. Energy flows in and flows out. This is very much in line with Oriental theory. Right? You can't store it. Qi is a flow. That's why the image of water is always used in Taoism. It flows, it moves. Stagnant water doesn't get very happy. So number one, you got to have enough energy. And number two, you have to have good communication in your brain. All the parts and pieces have to be able to communicate. So three things. It self-organizes. That's the brain skills. Right? Brain skills are compositions dedicated to specialized or specific forms of self-organization. Learning. Right? You could say self-organization or adaptation is ongoing learning. Knowing how to sit in your chair. Brain food is the gas in the tank. It actually, among, to me, a staggering list of other benefits, it literally increases ATP production in your brain. AKA energy. I'm not talking about, you know, mystical or controversial or subtle energies. I'm talking about good old phosphate bonds. The kind of thing that every single cell in your body uses to do what it does. A nerve cell communicates. It needs energy to communicate. A muscle cell contracts. it needs energy to contract. An epithelial cell secretes. It needs energy to secrete. So brain food is if you don't even get a Neuro Light, get the nasal light, get the brain food. It's the simplest, easiest, cheapest way to do better for yourself for the rest of your life. Period. Period. I won't go into detail, there's a lot of detail. Number 3, the connection, communication part. Remember I said self-organization is what your brain specializes. Any complex adaptive system specializes. There's no boss. Your brain doesn't have a brain. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah. It's like, the corporation has no boss. And yet it's fluidly interacting and adapting. What's happening? Well, it has to be enough energy, we'll call it motivation in the human sense, enough motivating energy, and the other is it has to have good connections. That's the brain gym. The brain gym works at building your capacity to communicate within the brain talking to the brain. And by the way, remember, the body is the brain is the body. Don't think the brain is here. That's a mistake. Minimally there are 4 brains, minimally. And even that is kind of stupid because we're cutting things up. There's a cranial brain, that's the newest. There's the heart brain, extremely old. The gut brain, almost the oldest. And the last one, it's the skin brain. Your skin is a brain. All of these things are interconnected as one functional unit. Don't cut things into pieces and then try to put them back together again. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Why do you think acupuncture works? It's because you're sticking needles into the brain. So the Neuro Light has 3 aspects. If you want to get the most out of it, which is kind of paraphrasing a couple of different questions, please recognize that brain food, the nasal light, brain gym, and brain skills are meant to be one whole dynamic process. I don't know if the word is famous, but I'm known for using analogies to the point of bumper stickers. Yeah. And to me, a few of the key bumper stickers is first things first, and one thing follows another. So first things first. Olaf's question about the how do you know it's too much and where do you begin? Or I forget I facetiously said it, begin at the beginning. As a light coach, light, not life, light as a light coach, which is I think a nice term for it. Think of yourself as an exercise trainer or a yoga teacher or something, right? But let's make it simple. You come to me, you want to improve your overall fitness, your wellness, okay? And we will use the lever of the body because a lot of us relate to our body. The brain is a little hard to relate to because we never really see it, right? We can't see it moving. So, okay, I know that you can lift 50 pounds. That's your maximum lift. Deadlift, 50 pounds. Why in the world do I start off with 100 pounds?
Push you beyond your current limitation?
Yeah, the gentleman says, Mark says, that's beyond your current limitation. Yes, capacity and demand, right? I'm giving you a demand that exceeds your capacity. This is fundamental. When I began using the Neuro Light, some of you know because I've talked about it openly or on videos as well. Maybe you think, because I designed the whole, all the compositions and the light signaling and the sound and all this fancy stuff and do all the trainings, that when I started using it, I would be using like the advanced exploration, like alien composition or something like that because I'm so smart or something. I don't know. The idea. No, I spent the first 2 months using almost exclusively brain food and brain gym. Why? Well, I don't know. I'm 68. So, I know my body isn't behaving the way that it used to. And I figure, I'm going to give my brain a chance here. I'm not going to go into the advanced yoga class When I walk into the yoga center, I see beginner's yoga, intermediate yoga, advanced yoga. I think, wow, you know, I used to be able to, so I'm going to go into the advanced. And, you know, the next 3 days I can't walk, and I think, what a fool. So, I spent about the first 2 months, 90% in the brain gym. Now, I designed every composition, I experienced every composition. Actually, there were 120 in the brain skills to begin with, and I said, you know, this is like too much. So I brought it down to 80, I think, well, you know, but then I'll put them in sections. You know, a dream task of mine, which will probably never happen, is to get a group of you together. Let's go through all of the different brain skill sessions, rename them, re-describe them, recategorize them, put them in intermediate or advanced or foundational. I know how to do that because I designed them, right? It's like an exercise trainer designing a routine. You have some idea. But I would love, I mean, it's a thought experiment in my mind. So understand that it's like the categorizations are not some kind of genius or magical determination. They're recommendations. They're my best shot. I made myself sick creating all these because I was so overwhelmed by the signaling. I did light and sound signaling for, you know, about 8 weeks, every day, nonstop. You want to knock about going too much? Been there, done that, and back again. So when it came time, and I'm recommending you to think this way, if you're an exercise trainer, and you know, you can't, but I can see around the room, if you were an exercise trainer and all of you came in one by one for private training, where do you start? How many pounds? How many reps? How fast? How many times up and down the stairway? You have to look at capacity and demand. Capacity and demand. And you know, where do you start? Look around the room. Just experience the person. Just experience the person. The way they walk in. Right? The cadence of their speech. The look on their face. The color in their skin. How they get in and out of the chair. This gives you an immediate insight as to how to relate to this person with the Neuro Light. You know, we have this thing, it's called different things in different sciences, neuroception. That as beings, animals, we're always cognizant, well, to a degree at least, of the environment and other beings that we interact with. It's a basic survival process. You know, at the most basic level, threat, no threat. That's the base when you walk in. You know, do you remember as a kid, in whatever room you played in most, how, like, I like this corner, that corner freaks me out. I just don't like playing over there. Maybe it was the dust or the light or the smell of the cat urine or whatever it was, but we have this innate ability. You do. Absolutely. We all do. Every living creature has this